Welcome back. It's the moment. Unfortunately, it is not 2016. It is 2026. My pal Meredith is out today. She will be back on Tuesday. But we are joined by, you've seen her on your FYP. You've heard her podcast. We have with us Simone Umba. She's a content creator. She's the host of the podcast, The Pop Culture Playbook, and she's a social commentary. Hi, Simone. It's so good to see you IRL.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's great to see you again.
All right, today on the show, we are going to talk about whether Trump is going to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota, whether we're going to be having midterm elections, and then we're going to be talking about the future of ICE and the Epstein files with Representative Summer Lee from Pennsylvania. So, Simone, did you do the 2016 trend this week? Where were you in 2016? Do you remember? You're younger than I am.
So in 2016, I was a freshman going into sophomore year at undergrad. The pictures I was trying to find on my feed, it is like, okay, we're only going to show like one of me in the car and that's it. I was just a scrawny little pretzel. I was trying to do like the whole filters with the flower crown and the puppy dog face. I'm just like, yeah, we're just going to do one. I don't want to go back.
Yep. Oh, really? I mean, like, I feel like the vibes, I mean, everybody, all the pictures in 2016 to me, and I guess everybody pulled out pictures of like, this was so fun. They feel very like, we didn't expect this to happen coded. I mean, I certainly didn't. It feels like everybody's like still in a place where they're like, you know, we're going to have a woman president one day. And now everybody's like, okay.
Yeah, that was from what like I've seen people talk about. Like one of my friends brought it up on Fred's where she was just like, yeah, that was the last time we had some joy before everything just took a 180.
I saw somebody who I follow who I don't think is like MAGA, but she's like a trad wifey type. And she was like, it seems like 2016 was the last time we weren't polarized. And I was like, I wonder what happened in 2016. I wonder, it's so weird that 2016 was that year. I don't know, like what could have happened. So we're here now. Where we are right now this week is it happened. Donald Trump did what he loves to threaten. He wants to use the Insurrection Act, or he may use the Insurrection Act. He tweeted or Truth Socialed that if corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop professional agitators and use the word insurrectionists from attacking patriots of ICE who are only there doing their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act. Just as a reminder for everybody, the Insurrection Act comes from 1807. It allows the president to deploy federal troops on the ground to suppress disorder. It's only been done a couple of times throughout history, including during the Civil Rights era, to enforce allowing Black children to go into desegregated schools. And then most recently in 1992, here in LA, where I am, during the riots, but the governor asked the president to do it at the time. So I wonder, Simone, like, what was your reaction? What was your reaction when you saw this?
So I knew that he was probably going to threaten using it because a lot of people were going to say, like, yeah, he's going to threaten to use it. And when he finally said it, it was like, okay, let's see how officials react, because a lot of governors are watching this and are saying, yeah, no, this is not going to happen. A lot of them have had press conferences saying that ICE is not welcome in their state. There are several that are saying that they're going to file papers of impeachment towards Kristi Noem. And pretty much we're all in the sense of he's trying to enact as much chaos as possible because he knows that he and his administration are running out of time because of the Epstein files, because of the upcoming midterms, because people are not reacting in the way that they anticipated. Like thinking back to last year when the ICE raids had started, people were coming together as a community to protect each other. Government officials were actually on the defense and fighting against it. So now going into year two, he wants to enact this because he knows the midterms has a possibility on flipping back onto the other side. So with him calling it, it's like, okay, he knows he's running on the clock.
That's what I see with like all of it. He seems really unhinged to me. I'm not a doctor, and so like I don't know, dementia, not dementia, like what, but he does seem unhinged. And like right before we went on Christmas break, the Epstein files deadline was there, and it did feel like, you know, Republicans were falling away from him. And then all of a sudden we come back after January 1st and we've invaded Venezuela. We may invade Greenland, and there's like literal scenes of battle on the street between ICE deployment and the citizens of Minnesota. Question for you, Simone. Did you have Minnesota? Like if you were to guess where like the epicenter of fighting between the federal government and the states would be in Minnesota?
I did not have it ever on my bingo card. And I'm saying that as someone who is like from the South. I thought it was going to be somewhere in like our area region, but knowing how he always aims for blue cities or blue states, I knew he wanted to make an example out of the city. So you can see why, you know, this is basically a testing ground for him to do to other places.
100%.
Because there are so many just like hotspots that he's tried to do this, but the citizens and public officials fight back against it. So it's going to be so important to watch what happens after, especially with the death of Renee Good and how people are reacting to that and how he's going to proceed, which is why he's calling on the Insurrection Act to be enforced.
Yeah, I know. I saw an article in Wired where an anonymous official said this was going to come to LA and New York next. And I fully believe it. Like I'm in LA and I'm starting to feel like that tension here of it coming. And they just seem totally unhinged to me. Did you by any chance read the article in Slate of a journalist who applied to become an ICE officer?
Yeah, I saw that whole story in the breakdown. I said, I'm not surprised. They're practically picking up volunteers to do this.
Exactly. So for anybody who didn't read it, there was a journalist who applied to be an ICE officer, and she did it like just like truly the way that you like hit apply on LinkedIn to a job that you're like, I don't know, whatever. And like she got it. And she they reached back out to her, and it just was sort of like the way that they're doing this is bizarre. And then they're going to throw in the Insurrection Act. I don't know whether he actually does it. He threatened it in 2020. Like he likes to threaten it, but you know, yeah, I don't know. But I think if he does threaten it, it feels like, or rather if he does do it, I feel like he does it strategically and thinking about the midterms, because this one really did it for me this week. While he was talking to Reuters, he said that when you think of it, we've accomplished so much, we shouldn't even have an election. And of course, this is the second time this week where he's come out and said, if Democrats take back the House and even the Senate, I'll be impeached. Like he clearly is aware that this is what's going to happen. And so I think he's freaked out. And then meanwhile, by the way, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of an Illinois Republican in dismantling some voter ballot initiatives. So it's a little Stop the Steal 2.0. And it feels like with the Insurrection Act, I'm like, he's gearing up to like stress out the streets. What do you think?
I think that this is something to definitely be concerned about, especially going into primaries. I know for Georgia, ours is in May. I think Texas is in probably like late March, early April. I have to check back on that. But with like the blue wave with November, with flipping over House seats and special elections, I knew that they were going to retaliate in some way. And, you know, half the time I think like he doesn't realize what he's saying out loud, but also he wants to say these things in order to elicit fear. And a lot of what's happening. They want to invoke fear in people. There's so many interviews from people in Minnesota talking about how basically they'll pick them up and they'll drop them off after basically messing with them and just beating them. There was one 16-year-old that works at like a Target that was taken from like the store, him and a coworker, and he was dropped off at another store down the street, just beat up. And
like
he had his driver's license, he had his citizenship. It's just terrible. Like, he wants to listen fear in everybody. There was another story that I saw of this family that was trying to drive away. It was a father talking. He said that him and his kids and his wife were tear gassed, and their 6-month-old baby is in the hospital right now because he cannot breathe because he had inhaled it. So this administration just wants to do as much chaos as possible by any means necessary, regardless of life.
And like, it's a couple of things. Something that I noticed yesterday that really creeped me out is all day yesterday, my feed was all Minnesota all the time. And it felt like I was getting these stories from people on the ground. And like, to preface and say, everybody I saw was like, no matter what it is you are seeing out there, it is so much worse. Like, you have no idea. Like, it is so complete. It's not pockets. It's not, specific neighbor. It is like the entire city is under siege. And then at around like 7 p.m. my time last night, all of a sudden my feed was just like bunny rabbits and, like whatever, like it just like it went away. And it was so creepy to be like, oh, I know exactly what this is. It's like they've switched up the algorithm and it's gone. But in terms of fear, I just want to play a little clip really quick. Because a reporter asked Caroline Leavitt about whether Trump is actually going to cancel the midterms. And I just want to play what she said.
President Trump has talked twice in recent days, once at the Kennedy Center and then to Reuters again last night, about canceling the election. Why is he talking about this?
I believe you're referring to the president's interview at Reuters last night. I was in that interview. It was a closed-door interview. Obviously, there was not audio or video. The president was simply joking. He was saying, we're doing such a great job. We're doing everything the American people thought. Maybe we should just keep rolling. But he was speaking facetiously.
You said that he was joking about canceling the elections. But Americans for generations have fought and died for democracy, for this democracy. Are you saying that the president finds the idea of canceling elections funny?
Andrew, were you in the room? No, you weren't. I was in the room. I heard the conversation, and only someone like you would take that so seriously and pose it as a question in that way.
I feel like these people are always like, he's joking, and then he does it, and they're like, well, this is what needs to happen, and it's very important, and it's like they switch. And, I just want to be clear to our audience, he can't unilaterally cancel the elections. Elections are state. Like, I don't want us to like pre-capitulate to this stuff, but like putting forth the idea is not funny. And he did this in 2020, like, it's not like he has no precedent for this, and just to see them like gaslight us over and over again. Caroline Leavitt, like, ugh.
I still can't believe that I'm the same age as her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, her soul is rotting from the inside out. So, speaking of journalism, just like quickly before we have Representative Summer Lee, another story that I found to be chilling was the FBI raided a Washington reporter's house.
That was insane.
That was insane. And we didn't really talk about it. They confiscated her work computer, her personal computer, her Apple Watch. Like it was things for hers, and they said it was because there was a leak in the department, the Defense Department, which, by the way, like, reporters are allowed to report on leaks, like that. They are allowed to do that, and it's all just so chilling. And I keep on trying to find the line for myself, to be totally honest, where I'm like, I don't want to be like, oh, it's fascist and it's over and we're cooked, because like that's not true. And there's like the courts are holding up, like there are things that are holding up, but like every day this like push further and further and further into like absolute complete takeover is like, I just don't know. I'm a little bit at a loss.
Yeah, I know, just like looking at just the headlines every day, like there's always the habit of like doom scrolling. And I have to remember when the inauguration happened, he had listed all the things that he wanted to do. And we all just took it was like, okay, he wants to put in as much as possible to keep us from having any kind of hope of getting out of this. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm still gripping to that hope. I know it's going to be like a lot of work, but we will get to the other side of this, and it's going to be a trek. You know, there's going to be November, and we're going to see that flip because a lot of people are determined. They are learned from the last election what's about to come, and they're more prepared. And we're basically fighting for our lives at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it looks to me like all the things that, I'm a little older than you, but like all the things that when I was growing up, we were like, this can never happen in the United States. Like it is, and it's just sort of like one thing out, the reporters, there's masked troops in the street. Elections are under threat. The DOJ is blowing past legal deadlines to obfuscate for the president, which, by the way, we're about to talk about with our guest. It is just sort of like every guardrail is just like gone, 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 gone. And, like the thing that gives me hope and solace is like under a real and total and complete fascist regime, 2 women, and specifically a Black woman, speaking about the things that we think and see with elected representatives, like that just would not happen. And so like we're still here. And so that gives me hope, like we're still talking and nobody's breaking down my door, but like, whew, yeah, I'm feeling it this week.
Yeah, and it's only January.
Oh my God, it's only January. It's only January and it's only year 2. It's not even technically year 2.
Whew.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have with us somebody who's in the trenches, Representative Summer Lee. We've been trying to get her on the show for so long. We're so excited to have here. She is an organizer. She is an attorney. She is a progressive state legislator. And now she represents Pennsylvania's 12th district and made history as the first Black woman from Western Pennsylvania in Congress. Representative Summer Lee, do we have you? Hello. Good morning.
Yay.
Good morning. I know we've been waiting for a minute. Thanks for your patience and for finally having me on.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for being here. I know that you are you've been a real superstar. I know it cannot be easy. It cannot be easy.
I don't even want to be one of those.
Yeah. I can't imagine, I do think that, and this is not about you, but this is in general, it's like our representative and leadership gets so much pressure from every direction. And I'm like, these are also just people doing their best, man,
Yeah, I do appreciate that because I think I was listening to a little bit of what you all were saying. We're talking about, that American exceptionalism. I'm like, oh, it could happen to us, but it does, right? And it is because it happens to humans and, even democracies. Or human-based government systems to serve other humans. So even as we're thinking about how to react to human nature when human nature goes wrong, right? Human moments, and we're all trying to figure this out in real time. Some of us have an obligation to figure it out a little faster than some others, but it actually will take each and every one of us because you don't get a dictatorship or fascism without consent, right? So we have to look at what does it look like? What does consent look like for each and every one of us and our roles that we play in society?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Like we are all on the hook here. It's like a democracy at its best is just a group of people who really like living in a place where we're allowed to vote for our electives, where we speak out, where we take care of one another. We got a lot in the news, and you sort of seem to be at like the crosshairs of a lot of these things. But I feel like let's start talking about ICE because that feels like the most now, and then we want to talk a little bit about Epstein and then the future. But you are one of the sort of few elected officials I've seen say abolish ICE. I saw you say anyway, abolish ICE. But actually that's a surprisingly contentious issue. I'm seeing all this hand wringing. Cory Booker put forth legislation saying that actually we need more training. Richie Torres said ICE officers need QR codes. Why do you think that like somehow this isn't an issue that people are coalescing around? Like even this with ICE in the streets.
Why would it be? I mean, I'm not even saying that to be smart, but the reality is that the movement for police accountability and to stop, police brutality, state-based violence against majority Black people and disabled people has been ongoing for decades and decades. And it has been as contentious at every step of the way. So when we think about how ICE is moving now, how they're moving with impunity, they're coming off of a reputation and truly a shield of protection that has been, given to another group that has moved I want in a similar way. So, right, this is all built on, kind of the myth of, protect and serve in some ways. And it isn't to say that no one protects and serve, guys. I ain't even saying that. But what I am saying is that where we have seen instances of abuse, where we have documented instances of racial biases and discrimination, we let fester. And now ICE has been able to take it one step further because they now essentially report directly to a person who aspires to be a fascist, an authoritarian. And even if you listen to J.D. Vance, if you listen to all them, now they're saying out loud, well, they are above the law. But those are the things that have been implicit for other areas of law enforcement. When we think about ICE detention centers, right, they operate very similarly to, our carceral system as it already does. So this is all a part of the carceral system that exists, that have for some time only, or not, I won't say only, but disproportionately impacted Black folks. And now that those impacts, that reach is starting to go beyond that, right? You're starting to get a little bit of alarm, or you're starting to get the hand wringing around, well, what should we do? Because precedent says that we should react to it this way, and precedent isn't ready for this moment.
Whew. Yeah. One of the things that I actually keep seeing online is like, there's been this like, oh, ICE is Gestapo. And then I've seen a lot of content creators say like, no, actually ICE is
America. ICE is deeply American.
Yeah. Like ICE is America. Yeah.
We do that a lot though, but we do that with so many things, right? We'll take instances from other countries again, because what it's doing is it's setting that standard that when something like this happens, it is inherently un-American, right? This is a Nazi, not a segregationist from the Jim Crow South, right? Not white America as a whole through, its inception to 1965, right? Until we, fought and bled and died, for civil rights, for a democracy, because that is the first time we had a democracy, right? So it's easier and it feels better to say, well, oh, you're acting like a Nazi, or that is the Gestapo, or that's apartheid, instead of saying, no, that's regular run-of-the-mill American racism. That's regular run-of-the-mill American brand authoritarianism. And it's okay to admit that America has also been a flawed country. If we ignore the flaws, if we ignore history, right? There's a reason why they've underfunded education. There's a reason why they have obscured education around revolutionary traditions, right? It's so that when we got to a moment like this, we didn't recognize it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, go ahead, Simone.
Yeah, I would say that is straight to the point, especially when we're watching all these videos in real time, what ICE is doing to citizens in just a simple neighborhoods. You brought up funding earlier. We know that the government is meeting its subjoint this month to talk about funding, and that ICE is set to be on the table in regards to that. Is there a chance that Democrats are going to push back on ICE receiving more funding, given of what we've seen so far and what is being invested into their efforts?
Yeah, Simone. So I gleaned the same, kind of information that other people have. I've been seeing with you all, right? When we've seen people come back with a little bit of the pushback, we're seeing Democrats say, well, no, it's not about abolishing, or no, it's about, doing this or doing that. So I would not be positive about it. I'm somebody who has never voted for, that portion of the budget that exceedingly funds, ICE, the military industrial complex, right? Because I'm somebody who fundamentally believes that we're not going to war our way to peace, right? We're not going to disappear our way to a civil society. So that's just not that isn't where I believe our financial priorities should be. I don't think that that's where our legislative priorities should be. And it is an ongoing conversation, right? But I think that that speaks directly to the tension that we already have within the party. And look, I'm one of the people who thinks that tension is not inherently a bad thing. There are some debates that we got to have. We have to have them out loud, right? Because we do actually have to talk some of these things out, right? Are you a person who believes, because sometimes we'll even say, well, I don't like what ICE is doing to American citizens. I don't like what ICE is doing to human beings.
Period.
I don't care how that human being got here or when that human being got here. I don't like what ICE is doing to human beings. I don't like the dehumanizing way that Donald Trump and Republicans are deploying ICE. I think that that is foundational to ICE's, MO, is the empowerment that they get through the dehumanization that Trump and Republicans have instilled in them. And I think that it's going to be very hard to separate that. Now, if somebody wants to make the argument, I'm willing to hear it. But I've not heard an argument yet for how they plan to separate that history, that foundational purpose of ICE with whatever they have in their mind for what they want it to be.
What they want to do. Yeah, something that I noticed recently was DHS posted a meme that was like a pastoral America, and it said after 100 million deportations. And then I did a little digging and I was like, okay, there's actually only 50 million immigrants, period, in the United States, including like my mom, who is a naturalized US citizen. 14 million of those people are here undocumented. So like, even if you were to deport 50 million immigrants, the majority of whom are here legally, who are the other 50 million people that ICE is trying to get out of this country? And like,
message.
Yeah,
but
right?
no, you don't actually have to ask that question, Rebecca. They're telling us.
Yeah.
The imagery, the rhetoric has been explicitly, right, white nationalists, Christian nationalists. Right. They're not hiding their hand right now. And I think that is another one of those signs when we think, can it happen to us? Listen, that's one of those signs. When you see the imagery, when you see like the label that was under the podium, right?
One of ours, all of yours.
Yeah. When you use that type of language, it doesn't just hearken to a particular thing, right? They're telling you what their worldview is. Yeah. They're telling you who their America is for. They're telling you, right? They've already deported American citizens. They've already detained American citizens. When we think, and I will say this because I'm Black American, obviously, but I'm Black American in the sense that my people have been here through forced enslavement for generations, for centuries. So I'm not, so no one in my family has immigrated, and we are no safer under this regime than anyone else. In fact, we've already seen a Black man killed by ICE, Black American men, right? We've already seen other Black immigrants who are being detained and being deported at higher rates. Haitians, we see the focus, the hyper focus on Somalis now, Eritreans, Ethiopians. When we look at who they're threatening to erase TPS status for, right? It's overwhelmingly darker skinned people, Black folks. And I don't believe that anybody in a regime that is that explicit is going to make a distinction between my hue of Black and another person's hue of Black. They're not going to ask us what the origin of our last names are. They're not going to ask us what our religion is, our faith, our language of origin. That's not their focus. Their focus is to make an America that reflects them, their values, their desires. We need to be very clear about that. But we also need to say that with the same energy that they're fighting for their version of America, we damn sure better be fighting for that version of ours with the same energy.
That's right. I think that is like a huge frustration, is like on the Democratic side, which has its own, like, we're not pushing back with equal measure. And we sort of don't quite know, I think, what to do. Do you have, what do we do?
I mean, yeah, it's a hard question. It is a hard question, right? Because what we know is that not one individual has the power to do anything by themselves. That's why a democracy
and shouldn't.
And for and by the people, which means that especially when we recognize and we acknowledge, listen, there are some Democrats who are going to do the thing where they're like, oh, well, they have the gavels. It is true. They do have the gavels. It is also true that Americans gave it to them. So when we think about who actually has the power to take that power back, it is only the people. Like I said in the beginning, We will only have a dictatorship with consent. So that means that not just elected Democrats, but everybody who believes in a free America and a free world has to say that this is my fight to take on. So when I think about what the role of elected Democrats is, it is to lead the charge every day fearlessly. It is to find whatever way to throw a wrench. And listen, that wrench is not always going to be like a big anvil. Sometimes it really is going to be a little wrench. Sometimes it's going to be a big bomb.
Right, you understand a metaphorical bomb.
Right.
Metaphorically. Right. Sometimes it'll be the big things. More often than not, it will be the small things, but we still have to take up the charge every day like it's our life that depends on it. Now, on the outside, the people. When you think about the civil rights movement, when you think about how we abolished slavery, when we think about how women won suffrage, when we think about how we won democracy through the Civil Rights, the Voting Rights Act, that was the people. That was not the government doing something on its own. It was a people-led grassroots movement of people who no longer consented to the ways in which our government was acting. So we need that energy now. When I say the most powerful weapons we have in our repertoire, what will be organized money and organized labor. And I ain't one of those people who just says general strike and then leave. There's a reason why authoritarians target education and they target organized labor, because if they can erode union support, union labor, they can make it harder for us to organize. But that organizing works. It's important, right? Because when we think about who we're fighting oligarchs. People don't like the term. We're fighting people with money. We're fighting the people who have all the money, and they are passing laws to keep you from getting some of that money. So we have to hit them where it actually hurts them, in their pockets. They use our labor and they stack their bank accounts, right? When we're talking about economic boycotts, who are the people who are funding Donald Trump, who are funding fascism? We have the power to send them a message that we don't support people who support our subjugation. But that is a sacrifice. That is a strategy. And it is hard. But Americans are comfortable because, again, it would never happen to us. We do have things to learn from our comrades throughout the hemisphere, not just the hemisphere, but specifically in the hemisphere who have already dealt with these types of regimes. We have to get organized.
Like tell people in Minnesota who it's now come to their streets every single day, every day, that boycotting is hard. You know what I mean? Like, I think probably they're ready to go. I just have a quick money question before we go to Epstein. You represent Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was on the sanctuary city list. Then it wasn't on the sanctuary city list. Now Trump is threatening to cut off funds to sanctuary cities and states. He Truth Socialed this. He said, like, coming February, this feels like one of those things where it's like, this can't be legal, right? The federal government can't withhold money for cities they deem sanctuary states, right? Like, what is this?
Again, what we've been seeing this whole time has been not tiptoeing, leapfrogging. He's been hop, skip, and jumping over the lines in the sand that we thought existed, right? He's been stress testing the system this entire time. He's stress tested the checks and the balances. And because he has the consent of the Congress that doesn't want to act as a co-equal branch of government right now, because again, it is the Congress that controls the purse. We have the spending power, but the Congress under Mike Johnson, under Senator Thune, are all operating as arms of Donald Trump's whatever. So when we think about that, listen, before we get into the legality of it, and there are going to be smarter people than me who will answer those questions. Shout out to our civil liberties organizations who have been, in the trenches. When you talk about someone who's actually been in the trenches, it has been those organizations that have been ready to sue, that have creative ways to try to hold this. It does
feel like, just like the courts feel like sort of like this last, right? Like it does feel like the courts are the only thing that he hasn't just totally been like, don't care, Well,
because again,
and you're a lawyer,
there is no authoritarianism without consent. The reason why he is able to kind of push aside the check and the balance of the Congress is because he has the House and a Senate, right? He has Republicans who are abdicating their responsibility. So y'all, please put some heat on them too. Like when we're talking about what Democrats do and do not do, listen, I'm the first person to talk to my colleagues about what they can be doing differently, me included. But when we ignore the fact that like Mike Johnson could also say that he does not want to give up his power as a co-equal branch of government, Don't let them off the heat. Don't let them off. Right. When we think about those, swing state Republicans, the swing district Republicans, yeah, they're going to need a couple Democratic votes if they think they're going to keep their job. Do you believe that we're a co-equal branch of government, or do you believe that you work for Donald Trump? Those are questions we have to start asking. So yes, the courts, whether they hold, we already know where the Supreme Court is, but at the end of the day, stand your ground. Sanctuary city, sanctuary state, stand your ground. Because again, Pennsylvania is a swing state. So if he's going to come to a swing state like ours and say that we're not going to give you no money, and then all these Republicans are going to need these Pennsylvania votes, right? Checks and balances will start to rebound. But yeah, these are real threats. And this is again, take nothing lightly that he says. None of it is a joke, like y'all said.
None of it's a joke. None of it's a joke. That's right. It's a joke until he does it. And
they want to see what they'll get consent for.
That's right. That's right. Okay, I want to switch to the Epstein files, because you have been like an instrumental tool for getting transparency here. But in some ways, it's hard not to see like all of this that's happening since January as a distraction from the Epstein files. The DOJ blew past the deadline, which like is illegal.
This is their second deadline that they've blown by.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Think about the December deadline because the district's petition got so much attention. But the reality is that when I, successfully moved the motion to subpoena the Epstein files back in July, that was also legally binding.
Wow.
The DOJ was on the hook from August.
Yeah, this is one of those things where it's like, this is textbook fascism. Like there's so many things where it's like, this feels like fascism, this smells like fascism. And then there's things where you're like, yeah, blowing past legal deadlines to politically obscure for the president is fascism, Where do things, can you just give us like an update? Because it does feel like it's gone away. And like, even I can't keep track of it. Where are we with the Epstein files right now? What's going on?
To be clear, it hasn't gone away. It hasn't gone away, right? And honestly, to a certain extent, I feel like, the administration, they're killing themselves, right? This is death by 1,000 blows when it could have just been one quick death. But like, right, the slow trickle in, right? It's trickling down faster than those economics from Reagan, right? But the trickle down is actually the thing that keeps it in the public. It's making people, it is building up the suspense, but also it's building up people's intolerance for it being obscure, for the lack of transparency. So where we are right now, right? Of course, we talked about the two deadlines that passed. Our deadline for the subpoena. That first subpoena has no excuses. So even now, if the DOJ would use the excuse from the bill that we passed, the Epstein Transparency Act back in December, right? That they don't have to release things that are under active investigation. That does not apply to the subpoena that we got back in July, because that goes to the Oversight Committee first. In the Oversight Committee in Congress, we are already used to seeing sensitive information. So there is actually nothing that should be stopping them from doing it. They are in contempt right now. They have so far produced 1% of the documents, y'all, 1%. And in those 1%, and because I'm not one of the people who focus exclusively on Trump, but whoever it is, wherever they are, I don't want that sort of distraction. But 1% is obscene. But in that 1%, we've also seen it has painted a particular picture. We've also gotten productions from the estate who has cooperated. That's where we got the birthday book with the weird Trump drawing, right? And so many other things. That's where we've gotten really terrible pictures of really explicit acts, illegal acts. We've now gotten subpoenas from the banks, right? We've talked to the survivors who have been a part of this and integral to directing us and guiding us in this. So things are moving and have been moving, but the key is the DOJ. And this is, again, Donald Trump's DOJ, who should have released months ago, could release everything right now, and should be made to answer for why they are illegally withholding information.
Period.
Period.
We're running out of time. I wanted to ask you about the Clintons, but I don't know if we have time for that. So I just want to ask the last question.
Yes. So they were a part of the subpoenas, right? A number a number of people, entities have been to subpoena. The biggest subpoena, of course, was the DOJ itself. The Republicans added on the subpoenas to Hillary, to Bill Clinton. The Democrats then got the subpoenas, helped got the subpoenas for the banks, the big thing. They were supposed to come on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know why they subpoenaed Hillary. Not my question to ask, but they were subpoenaed. They did not come as of Tuesday. Also want to mention that Ghislaine Maxwell was subpoenaed, and Ghislaine Maxwell outright refused, said that she would not come. So my thing is that if we're moving on any sort of contempt, filing any, articles of contempt, then they should be filed for the DOJ first and foremost, who have only produced 1%. They should also be filed for Ghislaine and anyone else who has refused to come. So on balance, right, I would imagine that I speak for me Democrat, not all Democrats, but I've talked to some of the other oversight Dems who are all concerned about anybody who doesn't respond to us. We're concerned about anybody who has been a part of this in any way. We want to know what part did you play, what information do you have? This is your opportunity to share it. And if I would imagine it would be better to share what you know, share what you've done, because it is coming out. We can ask the prince over in England.
Right. Yeah, he knows.
These files exist. The acts that they've done exist. You can only hold something in so long.
Period. Simone, I'll give you the last question.
Okay, so we know that the midterms are coming up in November, and with the blue wave we had last year prior, there is, a chance for Democrats to get back the House. If that were to happen for House and even Senate, what are the main priorities for day one, and does that include Trump's impeachment?
Yeah, listen, there's no statute of limitations on the crime that they're committing. Great. So I think that the first thing is we got to get this country back in order. Our democracy is still endangered, even if Democrats take control, if we don't do anything to fortify it. So I think for me, number one, money out of politics. We have to address Citizens United. We have to address how influential big corporations, big donors, millionaires have been. Listen, we have literally seen people buy themselves away straight into the Oval Office, not even just the White House. Right? That's egregious. So that's why that is one of my priorities. I think for Dems, all the things we care about, climate justice, we care about racial justice, equitable funding for education, common sense gun reform legislation, all of those things are held up by the fact that there is some rich bastard up in some politician's ear, up in their office, on their staff, right, in their face all day. We must change the tides. We cannot have a democracy and have an oligarchy at the same time. We simply cannot. So that's number one. I still have my climate caucus. I have one of the most comprehensive pieces of legislation around environmental justice, coming from real impacted communities. We have solutions for the problems facing our nations, and they come from marginalized communities and vulnerable communities and frontline communities. We have that. We have things for criminal justice reform. We will have to address what ICE and this administration has done. We will also have to address the ways in which he's dismantled our agencies, our government. So anyways, money and politics, let's get it done. We must to move on.
Representative Summerly, your energy is so refreshing to me. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being out there. And
thank you for having me. Thank you all for getting information out, good information. Please keep pushing it. Please keep saying it. I know it's frightening. Say it every day.
Say it every day. Yeah, as long as I truly am as long as we're still allowed to have these conversations, it's not over, and we got to be out there.
All right.
Thank you, Representative Summerly. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Wow, that energized me.
Yeah, that brought the mood back up for me so much.
Yeah, I do feel oftentimes I'll start this show and I'll wake up in the morning, I'll be like, oh my God, it's so bad out there. And then by the end of the show, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of people out there who see the world like I see the world and think this is unacceptable. So Simone, we always end the show talking about what's having a moment for us. What's out there. So what's having a moment for you this week?
So for me this week, just from my general feed, I've been seeing a lot of talk about Euphoria season 3. The trailer had dropped, and it's kind of been 50-50. It's 50-50 of people just we moved on from the show. They took too long. And it's the other 50% that's okay, I'm going to give it a chance. But after that first episode, if it's not moving.
I think we had a lag, but I think I heard what you said, which is like Euphoria,
Yeah.
it either has to be great day one or we're moving on. And I agree.
Okay.
And like, it's just sort of like, I don't know, all these people, they're different people now. Like Sydney Sweeney and Zendaya are not the same cultural figures that they were when Euphoria started, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, what's happening for me is this Ford
Yeah.
auto worker.
Complete
sorry, go ahead.
polar opposites of Wenjo.
Say that again. Sorry, we're having a lag.
No, just like the fact that there are two complete opposites from where they go, and I'm just not remembering where. Oh, just from where they both started the show, and I remember it was like 2019. I can't believe this was 7 years ago, and we're only on a third season.
I know. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we need it anymore. But who we do need is this Ford auto worker.
TV when it was 22 episodes.
I know. I'm so sorry, everybody. There is a lag. I just want to, before we go, I want to shout out this Ford auto worker who, let's play the clip, Vienna. I just love like people starting to shout at him, you know, pedophile protector, this Ford auto worker. They started a GoFundMe for him. And then more importantly, everybody's posting their 2016 pictures. I want to bring back when we used to make fun of Trump's teeny tiny hands because he gives the guy the middle finger here. And I'm like, I forgot that this man has the tiniest, stupidest hands I've ever seen in my life. So bring back a moment for me is bring back the 2016 trend of he has teeny tiny hands. All right, Simone, thank you so much for being here today.
I was so happy seeing that video. I was like, look at my phone.
Yeah. No. It was I also like I forgot even just seeing that somebody made the point is like presidents used to be, you know, like we have all sorts of problems in this country, but presidents were like a comfort in a time of, you know, like they gave speeches and went to churches and like cried with people and like looked dignified. And now we have this president who's out giving Ford auto workers the middle finger. Like wild, a real choice, you know, a real choice. All right, Simone, tell people where they can find you. You were, thank you so much for jumping in today. Tell people where they can find you.
Absolutely. You guys can find me at the Simply Simone on, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, I didn't know we still had a lag. You guys can find me at the Simply Simone on platforms, TikTok, Instagram, what was it, YouTube. There's just so many apps to keep up with. Definitely look for me on Substack where I give my extended commentary on just the things that I usually talk about. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you, Simone. You're the best. Thank you, everybody. We will be back on Tuesday with Meredith, and you know, stay classy, America.